Okay, this first presentation is going to be on DropTools. So DropTools is a development framework that allows you to create and use custom controls that are developed using LiveCode and makes it very simple to be able to implement them. In the past, creating a custom control, like for example a special progress widget or something like that, would require a bunch of additional steps in order to be able to implement it, even in your own stacks, let alone trying to give it to someone else to have them implement. So back at the LiveCode conference, I had given a talk on best practices on building custom controls. And in that discussion, I had presented a kind of a prototype of a palette that kind of aided in dragging and dropping controls to make it easy for installation. I got a lot of great feedback, so I turned it into a full-on framework. So I'm going to demonstrate that right now. First thing is that DropTools is just a simple palette. So it's a stack that, besides this, that sits inside your LiveCode plugins folder. Okay, and any of the tools or additional controls that you use are stored inside of the DropTools subfolder that is inside that. So I'm going to go ahead and launch LiveCode now. This is 4.6.1. I haven't upgraded to 4.6.2 yet, but should work the same. And the DropTools will be in your development menu. Ignore that for the moment. Okay. In the plugins sub menu, you pick STS DropTools, and what you get is a floating palette that corresponds to the tools that are in this folder. Right now, what I'm showing is the two plugins that come with the DropTools download. I'll also be kind of showing a few other ones and showing you how to do some organization and how it kind of works behind the scenes, and then the last step will be talking to you about how you can build your own. So for example, I'm going to create a new main stack here, and there are these two DropTools. The first one is called a prompt field, okay, and the second one is an image well. Now you'll see that the tooltip has two additional options here, which I will show in a moment, but each of these DropTools does a different thing. The prompt field is a very, very simple control that when you drag and drop it onto your stack, you get a field with a default prompt text in it. As soon as you click in the field, the prompt goes away, and you can type regularly. If the text disappears, then the prompt field returns. Okay, very simple implementation of this because it works with a single behavior button, but all you saw me do was drag and drop onto the card. All of the installation and the setup and the linking and all that fun stuff was done behind the scenes. To change what prompt displays on this, what you need to do is change a custom property of that control. In this case, it is the U prompt, okay? And when you change it, it updates the prompt that's in the field. Now you can have multiple copies of the prompt field, each with their own prompts, and it all works just fine. One thing to note, by the way, and I'm going to bring this up again later in my Metacard IDE talk, and that is LiveCode doesn't allow you to, or let me rephrase that. LiveCode locks messages before it assigns custom properties or changes custom properties from the inspector. So that means that if you try to change the U prompt of this group from the inspector, it's not going to work. So you need to make sure that in the LiveCode IDE that you do it through the message box, otherwise it can't respond to the set prompt message. So I'll double click this to show you what it's been named. It's called prompt field 1, and as I drag additional ones out onto the card, they each are given their own name and their own identifier. But the way the DropTools framework works is that any of the custom controls that work through the use of a behavior will all share the same behavior button. So in this case, all three versions of the prompt field control are all linked to the same behavior button. It did not copy the button 3 times. This makes it easy to update later on. It also makes it take up less room in your stacks and just much more efficient. The next one I'm going to show is the image well. And the image well is a more expanded or complex drop tool in that not only is it a custom control that has its own behaviors, but it also has images that it works with, and it also has a couple of additional features that can be built into DropTools stacks by DropTool developers. So the basics is that this is an image well object, STS image well 1 in this case, okay, and the purpose of that object is to hold an image, just like you would see in any Mac program. You can drag and drop an image into the image well, and it will accept it. Click on it to highlight it, you get a focus border, hit the delete key, it goes away. It's very straightforward. Certainly you can resize the image well to be larger or smaller as you want, okay? What happens to the image that's inside the image well is based on properties that you can set on that custom control. Now, if you remember with the prompt field, the only way that you were able to set the custom property of uPrompt was through the message box. Well, that was only because of the fact that, for demonstration purposes, I did not go to the extra step of adding a feature that is in DropTools, the framework, which is that every DropTool stack, every custom control that is distributed, has the ability to add an inspector, its own private custom control inspector, into the stack that is the DropTool kind of stack that's deployed, along with the option of including an about stack or an about box so that you can provide additional information. In this case, you notice that when I moved the pointer over to the image well, and the tooltip shows a couple of options. I can double click to display the inspector, or I can right click to display the menu of options. So right click shows that it's got both an inspector and an about box. And so I'm going to show the image well inspector here. Now this inspector has been set up within the DropTools framework to be notified, whenever the user makes a different selection or their selection changes. And it only updates when the kind of control that it's supposed to be working with corresponds to the inspector. So in this case, if I click on the prompt field, you'll see the inspector goes all gray. Okay, if I click on the image well, it's enabled. If I click off of the image well, it's gray again. Okay, and the inspector operates on whatever the current selection is. So right now, one of the options is scale to fit. If I uncheck that, then it doesn't scale anymore. So for example, if I were to take this off, resize the image well down to be smaller, okay, it's now cropped it. Turn it back on, and it's on. Once again, like you'd expect, each drop tool will communicate its properties to the currently displayed inspector. So this one that I have selected has its scale to fit turned on. This one has its scale to fit turned off. And there's another option here about limiting what kinds of what kind of file extensions are supported, and you can also select image data out of like a graphics program and paste it into the image well. There's a whole bunch of information about the actual control itself up on droptools.sonsofthunder.com, which I'll show in a moment. But this is just giving you an overview as to how this works, the inspector works. The About box, similar kind of thing. It's its own stack. You can make any stack that you want to be used for your About. If you don't want to provide a stack, but you just want to provide some simple About information as custom properties to your DropTool stack, you can do that also. So there's a lot of options. John Craig asked if the inspector appeared automatically. No, there is an action required. You have to double-click on the custom control in the DropTools stack, or right-click and choose Show Inspector. Anyway, so that's the basics behind using a DropTool. And so the next thing I'm going to show is a bit of organization to how to work with DropTools. So as you saw, we have currently 2 DropTools. I'm going to add in these 5 additional DropTools that we have available on the droptools.sonsofthunder.com site. This one was developed by Chip Walters at Altuit. This one by Jackie Lemon-Gay for Zygodact at Hyperactive Publishing Software, excuse me. And this one is by Sarah Reichelt. This is an adaptation of her calendar library to show how it could be used as a drop tool. So I'm going to switch back to LiveCode, and all I need to do is reselect the set, and it will update with icons corresponding to each of those drop tools.